So you ready to go?
All right, let's go. I have prepared nothing. Ready.
That's all right. Oh, that's great. Nice and natural. Some people are doing the absolute opposite and like writing it first and sending it to me.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
This will
hardcore.
be off the cuff. Yeah. Well, okay, yeah. So my name is Lagusta Yearwood, and I own a little chocolate business. It's kind of I don't know. I think it feels like a little bit of a sprawling empire. I'm constantly trying to make it smaller and more manageable, which has been a whole journey. Which I think I feel like has some ties to me for feminism of trying to be sustainable and not play the man's game of capitalism, maybe. Um, so I own a chocolate business called Lagusta's Luscious. We have a shop where we make everything in New Paltz, New York. Then we have like a production facility, also in New Paltz. Um, and I have a shop in New York City that I co-own with my best friend Marisa, who has a bakery in Kingston, New York, which is like 20 minutes from me. Um, that's pretty much it. I also co-own like a small cannabis chocolate business. Weirdly now with my husband, the whole thing's, I mean, it's been a couple of years. I should be used to it, but so it's been a wild world learning about the New York State cannabis rollout, which has been nuts, and being like a woman-owned, partially woman-owned cannabis business that there's very few across the country. So yeah, it's a wild ride, but fundamentally, I try to split my time between um like the running of the business and actually working in the business of making chocolates, making food things, just trying to keep my like kind of roots as a cook and like kind of keep myself in the kitchen. So it's a hard balance, but I have a very good team, so it's good. It's going well. Yeah.
Why don't you tell me a little bit more about the ethic of the business because that's quite unique. So you're against child slavery in chocolate production.
Yeah.
It's all. I think also it's like a queer identified organization, anarchistic. Even I think I've seen in my research about you.
I have
Tell me
given
more
up
about
on the
that.
anarchist label, let me tell you. Because I feel, I mean, my own political history is very much rooted in the animal rights community and a lot of anarchist readings and, Howard Zinn, Noam Chomsky, like all these wonderful people. And when I started my business 22 years ago, I really just wanted to work for myself and kind of not have a boss and, just do whatever I wanted to do and live my ethics and kind of just make fun, pretty things. And honestly, that has happened. But so
Mm.
that's been good. But I didn't really anticipate when I kind of, I guess now you call it like branding, when I started working on our branding, which for me was just like talking about the business. Like I didn't really have a business plan or it's never been any kind of sleek operation of like, here's our pitch deck to investors or whatever. So kind of over time, when the businesses kind of grew, I used to have a cafe in New Paltz, and I was kind of at one point employing like up to 25 people,
Wow.
and it was a lot. It was too many. All great people, but just like, whoof, I'm not built for like running like a medium-sized business. So, and I think we attracted a lot of people who were very, leftist and had a lot of problems with capitalism, as I do also. And it just started to feel a little bit weird of having this, business that is a for-profit business that was being promoted as like having this anarchist like ethos. So
Mm.
I really pulled back on that in response to like some I would say not very nice feedback, but as tends to happen in leftist spaces, sort of.
Yeah.
But it was fine, and so I was really like, yeah, I mean, we're a for-profit business. What I want to do is make good money, pay everyone super well, and just continue existing. And those three things are incredibly hard. And I think that I didn't need to overlay, like, I think as the political situation in the US has just gotten worse by the second, I feel like it used to be, all my employees will have enough money to buy a house in the Hudson Valley, which is like one of the most expensive real estate markets in the country, and then it was like, well, maybe everyone won't have enough to buy like a house, but maybe, well, and it's just kind of like, and I'm still trying to provide I think, very competitive, like benefits and pay and everything. But I feel like now it's like, okay, we're surviving. That's a victory, you know? So it's been a real journey of kind of not walking back what I actually believe in my heart, but kind of refining how I talk about it. Because I feel like when you talk about having all of these really beautiful political ideals, when you're actually in the world of like, damn, I don't have money to pay quarterly taxes, it's just like how, and I don't feel that I've compromised anything. I feel really proud of myself in that, like, I've never, I don't know, I think it's even like a concept that no one cares about anymore, but like sold out in a way that I feel like I'm not proud of. But I think the climate has just gotten a little harder. So, yeah, long, complicated way of saying, like, I don't know how much I identify with the idea of I don't know what I was going to say, like any kind of like belief system to put on the business, sort of, because it is just so hard to just like keep on going, that it's like, yeah, I was definitely studied, I was a women's studies major in school, and I feel like I very much run the business through a feminist lens of like, how do we use power, and how do we look at power dynamics in our space? And part of that is like maybe 10 years ago, all of us sat down who worked at the chocolate shop at that point and had a staff meeting about, do we believe in hierarchies or not? And because I very much wanted to run the business in a more collective way. And basically, my employees, and I didn't want to take tips. And basically, my employees were like, one, we want tips because it's money and we need money. And I was like, I can't argue with that. Okay. And we've taken tips ever since. And I might have some like highfalutin feminist ideas about it, but people need money to pay bills, So it's kind of like we're in the world. Um, and yeah, I wish I could afford to pay everyone enough that everyone was like, we don't need tips, but that would involve raising prices, and then customers who also need money would have to pay more. So it's balancing out these billions of things. And then at that meeting, we also decided we want hierarchies, because what it means is everyone knows their job. And there was kind of a feeling of like everyone does everything. And we were getting like a little bit too big for that. And it was kind of confusing. And there wasn't clear, clear understanding of what jobs were. So it's been a real growth for me, and I'm really grateful to all my employees over the years who've really, and I think at times painfully, um, helped me to like learn and grow. And we've hashed all this out together in a very, sometimes wild way. And we are where we are now, and we have me as the business owner and managers and shift leads and, all these things. And the system actually works really well because I try to provide really clear, performance goals and be fair and kind. And anyway, that's a very long-winded way of talking about the business, but there we are.
That
Yeah.
raises a lot of interesting questions. Well, first off, when you started talking about how do you do anarchistic feminist work in a capitalist like system, like first off, that's like the great
Yeah.
conundrum, but people do have to survive. But then interestingly, that's become an issue for a lot of feminist groups, be they businesses or collectives.
Yeah.
How do you delegate tasks in a way that is democratic and also, efficient, so not everybody's bumping over each other? So it's
Yeah.
interesting that that has worked. So that's been a sort of compromise there. But it seems like to me that there's a lot of communication and openness about that that probably helps it
Yeah.
to work and function.
Yeah, I mean, I love communication and openness. I mean, I've had, if it were up to me, I would practice complete open book finance and like, here's what we made this, but honestly, managers have told me in the past, it stresses people out, like people, like the businesses have been in a pretty precarious state for like 7 years at this point, and I think we're coming out of it. And I know this business, like I will make it work, but I think it's hard if, your boss is telling you like, we made no profit last month. I think like I don't want my employees thinking like my job is not secure, because I know like it is, we're going to make it work. So I think there's a line between total transparency and like, like I'm here, I can talk to you about anything you're interested in. Let's talk about it. And and I think also with a kind of communication, like I think it's important. I don't know. I think I used to be. Well, I don't know. I think this ties in a lot to my feelings about like the left versus the right in general, where I feel like the reason the left is maybe losing some battles lately is because we are disorganized and we
Mm.
do waste so much time sitting around chatting about process. And I feel like it's time to just be like, all right, AOC for president. Fine, great, let's go. Let's, like we got to
Mhm.
make this happen. Oh, my dog's running up the stairs. The loudest run ever. And I think that to a certain extent, I've seen other businesses with owners who really care and really want to make an ideal experience both for customers and employees get so bogged down in process and, you know, do not bark, and things that the business doesn't really function. So I think it's a hard balance. And what I've come to is kind of like the majority of people who work for me, like they just want to come to work, have a good job where no one yells at them, they make good money and people are kind. They get to eat fun treats and make nice things, and that's great. Like that's, I think, a huge victory. So yeah, it's been an interesting like journey of constantly refining like what are we doing? How do we do it?
So, all right, woman studies major background. That how then the jump to making chocolate and confectionaries? How did that,
Well,
what was a logical kind of jump there?
funnily enough, it is literally due to Carol Adams. It's a very weird thing where
Go
I brought
on.
her. Yeah, it's so funny. She actually went to my school, University of Rochester. I didn't know any of this then, but I reached out to her, I think in my senior year, must have been, of college and asked if she wanted to come and speak. So she came and spoke. It was really great. It was really wonderful. She's obviously a wonderful speaker. This was like 25 years ago. Oh my gosh. No, like almost 26 years ago. She was still a great speaker then. And then I was talking to her about like, I was a senior in college and thinking about my future. And I really wanted to and go to grad school, become a professor, study feminist poetry. Like I had all these, great ideas, which I still want to do, part of me. And then another part of me was like, maybe I want to go to culinary school and really learn about food and kind of look at food in this like feminist lens.
Yeah.
And it was right when this huge culture of very macho kind of food culture was really starting with kind of like Anthony Bourdain, like no
Yes.
reservations and like this whole like we're doing cocaine in the walk-in, like, out drinking all night, like yelling at everyone in kitchens. And like right from the start, I had this idea of like, what if I could run a food business that like did not have anything to do with that, you know? And so I was talking to Carol about it, and she was like, I think that's what you should do, and was very much like, it's great to be an academic, but it's also great to be like out in the world, doing things. And we need people on both sides. And it seems like that's kind of your passion right now. So yeah, so it was very much from the start, like consciously, um, like advancing my politics of being vegan and kind of, and at that time like veganism was like very different than now. It's a whole different world. So there weren't really any kind of like gourmet chocolate kind of anything out there. So that was, it was very much like part of the mission statement basically. So yeah, and then it just kind of grew slowly.
Yeah. Were you taught into, or, well, they kind of come and go, but a lot of these feminist vegetarian restaurants that have been around, I know that New York City had one. I can't remember the name of it. And then there was a Blood Root Cafe, I think in
Mhm.
Vermont.
In Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Oh,
Yeah.
Connecticut. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I actually worked at Bloodroot
No,
for
okay. Let's
10
talk about
years.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, I worked there for 10 years off and on. It's very sad because Selma, original founder of Bloodroot, just died about a month ago.
Mm.
So I just actually went to her celebration of life like 2 weeks ago. And they're still going. Noel, the other kind of owner, other member of the collective, is keeping it going, and I want to go up and eat soon. It's about an hour, 45 minutes for me. But yeah, I worked there. It was really, really amazing. I learned so much. It was totally just transformative experience. I just worked like one day a week because I lived really far away, but just kind of made it happen. And I'm inspired by them every day.
Well, why would you? Well, how did you get there, first off? And then secondly, why come from so far? What were you gaining from that that was worth the big commute?
Yeah. Well, I wrote them a letter, I guess, when I was also a senior in college. I was really
Wow.
figuring things out and was like, because I worked at a bookstore one summer and I picked up a copy of their cookbook and and I just wrote them a letter and was like, can I, oh, I know what it was. I did like a internship for culinary school, but I
Okay.
knew at that point that I was going to culinary school and I'd have to do the internship. So anyway, so I was like, could I do my internship with you in like a year after I finished this like year-long culinary program? And they wrote back right away and said, yeah. And yeah, I lived in New Jersey at that point. So I'd like take the bus to, um, Port Authority and then like walk to Grand Central and then take a train to Connecticut. It was ridiculous. And then work like 12 hours. I was like 20, I was like 22 or something. So it's
Mhm.
fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was the old, 18-hour day or whatever. But yeah, no, it was unlike anything I'd ever seen. It was very, it just felt like a kind of whole world was opening before my eyes of just like, you can do whatever you want in terms of truly living your values in the world, and values of like kindness and equality and just kind of, the same thing that I was talking about before, like Bloodroot very was not ashamed at all to very publicly wrestle with any kind of questions, any kind of like, how should we run this place? And, so yeah, it was pretty nuts.
Yeah, I think I like that you said that it's this kind of proof that you can just do what you want. I think that Carol's advice to
Yeah.
you, it's so spot on because I mean, I went straight into academia. I mean, I worked jobs while I was getting my degrees, but I always thought if I want to do this, I have to do academia. I didn't really have an imagination for anything else. And I think that is amazing that first off, she encouraged that, but then also that Bloodroot was there to sort of nurture that creative possibilities
Yeah.
for things.
Yeah, definitely those two, formative influences were super, super important. Yeah, I was very lucky.
And I came across I can't remember where I found it now. I'm also digging through the archives of Marty Keel, and there's all kinds of gems in there. But Batya Bauman, who was one of the leading organizers for Feminists for Animal Rights, also cites having worked in Bloodroot as being really transformative and getting her into vegan feminism. So
Wow.
that group of people, I think, may I be honest, I actually did not even know about them until I started researching for this book, even though I've been doing vegan feminism for years and years. And I'm
Yeah.
like, why? And I even lived in New Jersey. I wasn't that far away from Connecticut, but I guess I am from the South. You can probably tell from my voice. But anyway, that's really cool. I'm glad that that came up in conversation. I would have been really annoyed if you were holding on to that this whole interview. You know,
Yeah,
okay,
it's a funny little tiny world, but then when you kind of get into it, you're like, oh,
yeah,
and then this
all these
connects to
connections.
that.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Can I ask you then? It seems like this might be kind of skirting around. Have you been involved in with activism outside of the kitchen? Have you been activist like as far as organizing or campaigning, anything like that?
I mean, somewhat. Yeah, I feel like not as much as I would like to be, really. But yeah, I mean, I had this weird trajectory where I became really hardcore vegetarian kiddo when I was like 12. And
Mm.
then when I was 15, got really crazily into the vegan world. And it was my whole life. I was starting like little animal rights club in my high school. And my mom, I pulled her into it. And she and I became like presidents of Arizona's largest animal rights group at that point, which was not large because Arizona's not, this was like in the 90s and it was Arizona. So it's not very animal rights friendly. And it was so, like every weekend out, like flyering and picketing and like doing all these things. And I got really burnt out. Like even by the time I went to college, I was just like, oh, I'm so not suited for like going to protests and having confrontations. And
Yeah.
that was kind of what drove the whole kind of like vegan chef thing was kind of like maybe there's another way to do this work that isn't like standing outside of a rodeo, which like is hurting my soul. Can I do this on the other side through showing like, you can be vegan and it doesn't involve like giving up all these things.
Mhm.
So I think what I've tried to do over the years is really be like on the supporting side of like giving donations and trying to have a place for like animal shelters to come and have tables or things like that. So yeah, my mom actually stayed super into the animal rights world and was
Mm.
like just always doing kind of activist things. She died about 10 years ago, but literally was like going to protests like, 2 months before she died from cancer, like just full on. So I don't know. I don't have her energy for it,
Mm.
but
Are you both from Arizona?
I am, yeah. She grew up in Chicago and then only lived in Arizona for like 20 years. I had a very odd childhood. It was very bizarre. Um, so yeah, I haven't been back to Arizona, so I don't know what the like animal rights scene is over there these days.
I haven't
But
really heard. Yeah, hopefully this goes on YouTube with some Arizona commenters and I want them to fill us
yeah.
in.
Yeah, I think I know a few, but I mean, th definitely things are happening. There's always like pockets of resistance. Yeah.
I know I have a colleague who's at University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and they do quite a lot.
Hmm.
It's not too far. I mean, and it's relatively conservative there, so.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Hmm.
So that was the 90s. I mean, I think we were probably similar in age. That's when I first got into it as well. And that was what, yeah, you go to the rodeo. I didn't do rodeos, but we go to circuses and those kinds of
Yeah.
things. But what I think is really interesting about your story, though, is in doing research for this book, I think that probably because it is feminized and it is less glamorized, that I would not call what you're doing. I mean, it's activism. I'm phrasing it
Mhm.
awkwardly, but it is activism. And looking at the history of like the Blood Root Collective and other vegetarian kitchens, feminist vegetarian kitchens, they were doing this important nurturing for really for the movement and creating normal spaces. And I can still remember, when I first went vegan, to be able to go to restaurants that had intentional, you know, values like that. It's such a very
Yeah.
hostile world. It's such a wonderful feeling. And to create community, create space in that way. It's definitely activism. I don't think that you always have to be out there
Yeah.
marching and flying and being as strong and independent as your mom. Sometimes it's like it does wear you out. It does wear you out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it does feel good. Like I really enjoy coming to work every day and just working through the millions of problems to be solved owning a business and interacting with customers. And, like we just have so many great customers who are just really happy we exist and happy to hang out. And
Yeah.
so like very few of them I would say are like hardcore vegan, like we
Yeah.
definitely have vegan customers for sure who I adore. But, and I've noticed over the years too, like we have less and less people, I think just culture has changed, who leave because there's not like, real milk for their coffee, which used to happen all the time. But now,
Get it.
we're
Jeez.
like, oh, I'll just have oat milk, and we would always do a thing where we still do it, but it doesn't happen that often, where if someone's like really hyped up because they don't have dairy milk, we'll just offer them like a free latte just to be like, if you hate it, oh well, you got a free latte.
That's
If
a good
you liked it,
idea.
you had a vegan milk, you didn't die, and like there we go. And then like, they can't be mad because they got something free. So I feel like in those little ways, I'm like, that's activism right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it feels nice.
That's clever. I like that. But yeah, just kind of demystifying as well. Like it's actually tastes quite nice. And probably for
Yeah.
a lot of those people, they don't realize they're lactose intolerant anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we've also had customers who for years have eaten our chocolates and had no idea they were vegan, which is very funny because we don't really advertise it, because it's kind of like trying to be like a little Trojan horse kind of thing. So, or maybe they vaguely know, but they don't care, and then their like vegan cousin comes to visit and is all excited and they're like, wow, so it's always funny seeing like the reactions.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So this is skirting around a question I have. So it kind of came up about some of the difficulties with, I'd say, vegan feminist organizing about what's the role of leadership, what's the role of hierarchy, what's the role of delegation and all that. But this is also not necessarily just a feminist issue from listening to you. What are some of the limitations or challenges that you feel like you faced just doing vegan work or animal liberation work? You kind of hinted at the beginning of our conversation about this new kind of atmosphere. I'm assuming you're referencing since Trump started a few years back, not recent Trump, but this whole
Yeah.
cocaine Trump that began back in what, 2017?
Yeah.
It's been quite a lot of, so are you kind of insinuating that that is kind of creating larger barrier for you? And how is that impacting animal liberation more generally, your role in all of that?
Hmm. Yeah, do you mean kind of from the right or kind of internally from like leftist
All
movement?
of it. It seems you've been hinting at quite a lot. So I'm seeing if you want to elaborate
Yeah.
on some of these.
Well, that's a good question. I mean, yeah, I I feel so demoralized just by the, last few weeks of like politics with the Trump administration. It's just like, what is going on? I do feel really angry at leftist movements in general because I think we have to be smarter.
Mm.
I think that the right, are naturally have well, I don't know if I want to say in like a thing that's going to be on YouTube and Trump's America, like the right naturally have fascist tendencies, so it's
You can
easier for them
always
to,
edit what you don't want to keep in, but that sounds a little
yeah.
accurate to me.
you know, but I think that the left, we b deeply believe in diversity and all, and diversity in every sense, and so we spend our time fighting over the tiniest little changes and we just need to make gains. So I find that very frustrating. I feel that owning a business that people know is like very firmly planted on the left has brought, and I think this is bound to happen, and I find it interesting and amusing, also very irritating, but I think that it's bound to bring people who invariably think that we're not doing enough, because it's like, oh, I know you have these beliefs, so why aren't you doing this? And I just want to be like, babe, I'm trying to keep the lights on. Like, just give me a second. And I think that, it comes with a lot of expectations for people to know that you care about things. And it can be really hard to meet those expectations. So, for me, trying to be a person who like truly does care, and these issues are why I started the business, to be told by people that I feel are my allies, you're not trying hard enough is not the best.
Yeah.
But I think I felt that maybe a little bit more like 2021 to 2023. I feel like there was a moment of real like kind of cancel culture, like just really like just felt bad. And now I feel like the right has gotten so things have gotten so bad in the mainstream world that I do think the left is kind of like, we don't have time for that. We don't have time to cancel each other. Like we just have to stand, like trans people are having rights taken away by the second. Like we have to stand up for immigrants and, like the most vulnerable among us. So I hope maybe putting that out there as a hope. So I don't know if that answered the question, but yeah, it's frustrating and endless.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't predict when I started organizing this research project. I mean, I knew there was a chance Trump would get reelected. Then he got elected, and I said, okay, I know that's not going to be great because of Project 2025 or whatever, but it has been so unbelievably beyond. And then my
Yeah.
interviews began. It's like, so this is like
Yeah.
naturally coming up in a lot of people's interviews as well. And if you're trying to stay afloat as a business who's radically against all of that, yeah, you're going to be feeling it.
Yeah.
It's a,
I think at the same time, it's created a lot of, very sweet, bittersweet opportunities for connection. The day that Trump was elected, we had this come to the cafe at night and scream thing. And we just all sat outside and screamed. And there was people just walking by, like walking their dog, and I was like, "Oh, sorry, we're just screaming." And they were like, "Oh, can we join in?" And they just neighbors like joining in. So there was things where like it was very beautiful, and we were all just like, "Okay, that felt good." So I don't know.
this is amazing. So what is your legacy going to be in all of this, do you think?
Oh God, I don't know. I feel like all my legacy. Oh, I feel what am I dead? I don't know. I am just I don't know. I guess maybe just saying that like it's okay to try, that
Yeah.
maybe inspiring people that like you can just kind of go for it
Yeah.
and that's an okay path. And not that everything's going to be perfect and it's going to be like the utopia that you dreamed of building, but yeah, I think I'm really proud of just like getting up every day and just keeping on. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really interesting, different perspective. I'm really glad to have interviewed you. I do have one more question.
Yeah.
What does vegan feminism mean to you?
Well, I would say that all oppressions are connected. Sorry, I have this textbook definition, but it's because I really believe in it. That no one is free when others are oppressed, you know? And for me, I've always felt a huge um, love for animals my whole life. And so coming from like Arizona didn't have like a Martin Luther King holiday, you know, and my mom and I would like go on protests about that when I was growing up and now they do. And just seeing like, wow, like we need to work for all these things simultaneously. And I think that just continually I don't know, what do they say in the animal rights world? Like expanding the circle of compassion, you know, like continually looking for ways of like, how can we go deeper into our politics and how can I, not only like be vegan or try to buy products from good companies, but how can I go to my local like refillery and get my little laundry soap that doesn't have a package? You know, for me, it's just all about, and not in a depressing way of like, oh, there's too much to do, everything's horrible, in kind of a more joyful way of like,
Yeah.
I find there to be a lot of joy of like, I made this meal from local ingredients and, I don't know, this sounds a little bit Pollyanna and crazy, but I feel like it's for me, like vegan feminism is kind of like taking the teachings of feminism of looking at power dynamics and how we treat each other basically, and looking not only at the relationships between men and women, but looking at the whole world and seeing it through that lens.
Yeah.
Yeah.